Captain Jake Morrison stood in the middle of the bridge, watching the stars move past the big window. The ship was called the UES Horizon, and it was far from Earth. Jake had been in space for 15 years, but he still loved looking at the stars. They reminded him of home, even when home was millions of miles away. The Horizon was not a warship. It was an exploration vessel built to find new worlds and study strange things in space. Jake and his crew had been flying around the outer edge of known space for 3 months. They were supposed to map new star systems and look for planets that might be good for human colonies. Lisa Carter sat at her station, wearing the blue uniform of the communications department. She had joined the crew 2 years ago, fresh from the academy on Mars. Lisa was good at her job, maybe the best communications officer Jake had ever worked with. She could pick up radio signals from incredibly far away and decode languages that no human had ever heard before. "Captain," Lisa said, turning in her chair to face Jake, "I'm getting something weird on the long-range scanners." Jake walked over to her station. The screen showed waves of light moving up and down in a pattern. "What kind of weird?" "It's a signal," Lisa said, adjusting the controls. "But it's not like anything in our database. The pattern keeps repeating every 37 minutes and 12 seconds. Someone is broadcasting this over and over again." Dr. Amy Walsh heard them talking and came over from her science station. Amy was older than most of the crew, with gray hair and kind eyes. She had been studying alien technology for 20 years, ever since humans first found proof that other intelligent life existed in the galaxy. "Let me hear it," Amy said, putting on a headset. Lisa pressed a button, and strange sounds filled the bridge. It was not music, but it was not random noise either. The sounds went up and down like someone was trying to say something important. There were clicks and whistles, mixed with deeper tones that seemed to come from something much larger than a human throat. "Where is it coming from?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her instruments. "The Vega system. About 47 light-years from here. The signal is strong, Captain, really strong. Whoever is sending this has a lot of power behind it." Amy took off the headset and looked worried. "I've never heard anything like this before. But the way it repeats, the urgency in the tones, this sounds like a distress call." Jake thought about it. The Horizon was supposed to be mapping the Kepler sector, not chasing mysterious signals. But if someone was in trouble, the rules of space travel were clear. You helped if you could. "How long would it take us to get to Vega?" Jake asked. "About 6 hours in hyperspace," answered Tony Rodriguez, the ship's navigator. Tony was a quiet man who knew more about star charts than anyone else on the ship. "Captain," Amy said, "if this is a distress call, and if it's been repeating for who knows how long, then whoever is sending it might not have much time left." Jake made his decision. "Tony, set course for the Vega system. Lisa, keep monitoring that signal. I want to know if it changes at all. Amy, see if you can figure out what they're trying to say." The Horizon changed direction and jumped into hyperspace. The stars outside the window stretched into long lines of light as the ship moved faster than the speed of light. Jake had made this jump thousands of times, but it still amazed him that humans could travel between the stars. During the 6-hour journey, Lisa worked on the signal. She ran it through every translation program the ship had. She slowed it down, sped it up, and broke it into smaller pieces. Nothing worked. The language was completely unknown. "It's definitely artificial," she told Jake. "This isn't natural radio waves from a star or planet. Someone is making these sounds on purpose." Amy studied the mathematical patterns in the signal. "Look at this," she said, showing Jake her tablet. "The signal has layers. There are at least 3 different voices speaking at the same time, but they're all saying the same thing." "3 different species?" Jake asked. Maybe one species that communicates differently than we do. But Captain, there's something else. The signal is getting weaker." Jake felt a chill. "How much weaker?" "It's lost about 12% of its strength since we first detected it. If this keeps up, the signal will be gone in less than 2 days." When the Horizon dropped out of hyperspace near Vega, the crew saw something that made them all stop and stare. The space around the star was full of debris. Pieces of metal and strange materials floated everywhere, reflecting the light from the star. Some of the debris was huge, as big as city blocks. "My God," whispered Tony. "There was a battle here." "A big one," Jake ordered Red Alert. The ship's lights turned red, and all crew members went to their emergency stations. "Lisa, where is that signal coming from?" Lisa's fingers flew over her controls. "There," she said, pointing to a spot on the main screen. "It's coming from that structure." The structure was unlike anything humans had ever built. It looked like a huge flower made of metal and crystal, with long arms reaching out in all directions. Lights moved along the arms like blood flowing through veins. The whole thing was about the size of a small moon. "It's beautiful," Amy said softly. "It's also damaged," Tony added. "Look at those burn marks. And that whole section on the left is gone." Jake studied the alien station. "Any signs of life?" "Yes, Captain," Lisa said, sounding excited. "I'm detecting life signs. Lots of them. At least 3 different biological patterns. And the signal is definitely coming from there. Can you establish communication?" "I'm trying, Captain, but our languages are so different." "Wait, I'm getting something." The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at an alien face. It was insect-like, with large compound eyes and moving mouth parts. The alien was wearing what looked like a uniform, though it was hard to tell with such a strange body shape. The alien spoke in the same clicking, whistling language they had been hearing. Then there was a pause, and the alien tried again in a different language. Then another pause and another try. "It's cycling through different languages," Amy realized, "trying to find one we understand." Jake stepped forward. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon. We received your distress signal. Do you need help?" The alien stopped cycling through languages and stared at the screen. Then it began speaking very quickly in its own language. Other aliens appeared on the screen, all talking at once. They looked different from each other, like they were from different species entirely. "I don't think they understand us," Lisa said. "But they're excited. Look at how they're moving." Amy was working frantically at her station. "I'm uploading our basic translation software to them. If they're smart enough to build that station, they should be able to figure out how to use it." They waited. The aliens on the screen were clearly doing something with their computers. After about 10 minutes, the main alien spoke again. "We understand?" "Little," the alien said in broken English. "You dying?" Jake felt his heart racing. "Yes, we want to help you. What do you need?" The alien looked sad, even though its face was nothing like a human face. "Too late for us, but dorning. You must warn others, the DVOURERS. They come everything." The screen went dark for a moment, then came back on. This time, Jake could see the alien station more clearly. It was not just damaged, it was barely holding together. And in the distance, something huge and dark was moving between the stars. "What are the Devourers?" Jake asked, but the alien was already speaking again, and this time its voice was filled with fear. "They come you." Next. Jake Morrison stared at the alien face on the screen. The creature's compound eyes reflected the emergency lights from its damaged station. Behind it, Jake could see other aliens moving around quickly, their shapes strange and unfamiliar. "Captain," Lisa Carter said quietly, "I'm getting better at translating their language. The computer is learning fast." The main alien spoke again, and this time the translation was clearer. "I am Admiral Kethver of the Kepler Coalition. You are the first to answer our call for help. We have been broadcasting for 27 days. Jake stepped closer to the screen. "Admiral Kethver, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon. We came as soon as we heard your signal. What happened here?" Kethver's insect-like head moved in what might have been sadness. "The Devourers came 3 days ago. They destroyed our defense fleet. We are all that remains of 7 worlds." Dr. Amy Walsh moved to stand beside Jake. Admiral, we're scientists and explorers. We want to help, but we need to understand what we're dealing with. You should leave, Kethver said. The Devourers will return. They always return to finish what they started. Your small ship cannot. Fight them. Jake looked at his crew. Tony Rodriguez was studying the debris field on his instruments. Lisa was working to improve the translation system. Amy was taking notes on everything the alien said. These were good people, and they had never run from someone who needed help. We're not leaving, Jake said firmly. Not until we understand. What happened here? Can we come aboard your station? Kethver was quiet for a long moment. You would do this? You would risk your lives for strangers? That's what we do, Jake said simply. 2 hours later, Jake found himself walking through the corridors of the alien station. The walls were made of a material that looked like living coral, and soft lights moved along the surfaces like flowing water. The air smelled strange, like flowers mixed with electricity. Amy walked beside him, her scanner constantly recording everything they saw. The architecture is amazing, she whispered. It's like they grew this place instead of building it. Lisa stayed on the horizon to maintain communication, but she was monitoring everything through Jake's helmet camera. Captain, I'm seeing at least 4 different architectural styles. The station was built by multiple species working together. They were met by Admiral Kethver in what appeared to be a command center. The room was circular, with workstations arranged in a spiral pattern. At each station sat a different type of alien. Jake tried not to stare, but he had never seen such diversity of life. Welcome to Unity Station, Kethver said. The last free outpost in the Vega system. Let me introduce you to the Coalition. The first alien Kethver introduced looked like a living crystal. It was tall and thin, with faceted surfaces that caught and reflected light in beautiful patterns. This is Commander Lyrabeth of the Zilani. Her people communicate through harmonic vibrations. Commander Lyrabeth touched a device on her chest, and suddenly Jake could hear her voice in his helmet. Greetings, human. Your arrival brings us hope we had thought lost. The next alien was massive, easily 8 feet tall, and covered in thick fur. It looked like a cross between a bear and a gorilla, with intelligent eyes and careful movements. This is General Throckmore of the Throck Republic. His people are our primary military force. General Throckmore's voice was deep and rumbling. You are small, human, but you came when others would not. This shows courage. Kethver continued the introductions. There was Commander Zaralin of the Quintal, who looked almost human except for her pale blue skin and large black eyes. There was Engineer Vexstar of the Novan Collective, a slug-like creature whose body seemed to change shape as it moved. There was Captain Rilden of the Photonic Assembly, who appeared to be made of pure energy contained in a mechanical suit. 7 species? Amy said in wonder. 7 different evolutionary paths, all working together. We were working together, Kethver corrected, before the Devourers came. Jake sat down at the central table, trying to process everything he was seeing. Tell us about the Devourers. What are they? Commander Zaralin answered, her voice carrying a telepathic quality that made Jake's head tingle. They are a plague upon the galaxy. They appeared in our space 2 years ago, coming from the direction of the galactic core. At first, we thought they were just another aggressive species, General Throckmore added. We tried to negotiate to establish boundaries, but they do not communicate. They do not negotiate, they simply consume. Engineer Vexstar-S form rippled as it spoke. They are not like us. They do not build cities or create art. They exist only to feed. They strip entire worlds of all biological matter. What do you mean by consume? Amy asked, though Jake suspected she already knew the answer. Captain Rilden's energy form pulsed brighter. They eat everything. Plants, animals, even the microorganisms. In the soil, they leave behind dead rocks floating in space. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. How many worlds have they taken? 14, Kethver said quietly. 14 worlds, with billions of lives. The Zilani homeworld was first. Then the outer colonies of the Throck Republic. The Devourers. move through space like a storm, destroying everything in their path. Amy was taking notes frantically. How do they do it? What's their technology like? They are not machines, Commander Larabeth said, her harmonic voice creating strange echoes in the chamber. They are biological, living ships that grow and change. When they consume a world, they become stronger. They use the biological matter to create more of themselves. Show them, General Throckmore said grimly. Kethver activated a holographic display in the center of the table. Jake watched in horror as the display showed the last moments of a beautiful blue-green world. The planet was covered in cities that looked like works of art, with graceful spires reaching toward the sky. Then the Devourers arrived. The enemy ships looked like massive insects or deep-sea creatures, with writhing tentacles and pulsing organic hulls. They landed on the planet's surface and began to spread like a disease. Jake watched as the beautiful cities were consumed, their matter absorbed into the growing mass of the Devourer ships. This was the Zelani homeworld, Commander Larabeth said, her voice filled with grief. 5 billion souls lived there. Now it is a dead rock, and the Devourers are 5 billion times stronger. The hologram showed the aftermath. The planet was gray and lifeless, its oceans gone, its atmosphere thin and poisonous. The Devourer ships, now larger and more numerous, lifted off and moved toward the next world. This is what they do, Kethver said. This is what they will do to your Earth if they are not stopped. Jake looked around the table at the alien faces. Each one showed the same expression of loss and determination. How do we stop them? We cannot, Engineer Vextar said, its body deflating slightly. We tried for 2 years. We combined our fleets, our technologies, our knowledge. It was not enough. The Devourers learn, Commander Zarelin explained. Every time we develop a new weapon or tactic, they adapt. They incorporate our technology into themselves. We made them stronger by fighting them. Amy leaned forward. But you're still here. You're still fighting. We are the last, General Throckmore said. The survivors of 7 species gathered on this one station. We have perhaps 1,000 ships left, and most of those are damaged. Why did you send the distress signal? Jake asked. If you think the situation is hopeless, why ask for help? Kethver's compound eyes focused on Jake. Because we discovered something. The Devourers are not random in their movement. They are following a pattern, consuming worlds in a specific order. And according to our calculations, they will reach Earth in less than 6 months. The room fell silent. Jake felt the weight of billions of lives settling on his shoulders. You're warning us. We are asking you to warn your people, Commander Larabeth said. Tell them what is coming. Tell them to prepare. Or, General Throckmore added, tell them to run. Find new worlds, far from here. The Devourers may not follow. If your people scatter, Jake stood up, his mind racing. There has to be another way. What if we work together? What if humanity joined the coalition? You have 1 ship, Engineer Vextar pointed out. How many ships does your species have? I don't know exactly, Jake admitted. But we have colonies on dozens of worlds. We have shipyards, manufacturing facilities, and military academies. We've been preparing for the possibility of alien contact for 50 years. You are a young species, Kethver said. You have been in space for less than a century. The Devourers have been consuming worlds for thousands of years. Maybe that's exactly what we need, Amy said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. Maybe we need a fresh perspective. Maybe we need someone who doesn't know that the Devourers are unstoppable. Jake smiled for the first time since they had arrived at the station. Dr. Walsh is right. We humans have a saying, we don't know when to quit. Sometimes that gets us in trouble. But sometimes it saves lives. Commander Zarolin's telepathic abilities allowed her to sense Jake's emotions. You truly believe you can help us? I believe we have to try, Jake said. And I believe the first step is getting this information back to Earth. Our leaders need to know what's coming. Kethver stood up, his alien form somehow conveying dignity and hope. Then go, Captain Jake Morrison. The journey back to Earth felt like the longest trip Jake Morrison had ever taken. The U's Horizon moved through hyperspace at maximum speed, but it still took 4 days to reach the Sol system. During those 4 days, Jake barely slept. He kept thinking about the dead worlds he had seen in the holographic display, about the desperate faces of the Coalition aliens, and about the billion people on Earth who had no idea what was coming. Dr. Amy Walsh worked around the clock, preparing her report. She had recorded everything from Unity Station, the alien languages, their technology, and most importantly, the tactical data about the Devourers. "Captain," she said on the third day, "I've been analyzing the Devourer attack patterns. They're not random, there's a method to their destruction." Jake looked at her findings on the tablet she handed him. "What do you mean?" "They target the most populated worlds first," Amy explained. "The more life on a planet, the more attractive it is to them. Earth has over 10 billion people. It will be one of their primary targets." Lisa Carter had been working on something else entirely. She had been studying the Coalition's communication methods, learning their languages, and most importantly, figuring out how to establish a permanent communication link with Unity Station. "Captain, I think I can set up a quantum relay. We can stay in contact with Admiral Kethver and the others." When the Horizon finally arrived at Earth, Jake immediately sent a priority message to Fleet Command. Within 2 hours, he received orders to report directly to the President. Jake had never met the President before, but he knew Helen Martinez by reputation. She had been a general in the Colonial Defense Force before entering politics, and she was known for making tough decisions quickly. The meeting took place in the Situation Room deep beneath the Presidential Palace in Geneva. Jake stood at attention as President Martinez entered the room, followed by a dozen other officials. Jake recognized Fleet Admiral Ryan Torres, the head of Earth's military forces. There was also General Patricia Hayes from the Colonial Marines and Director Kevin Stone from the Science Division. "Captain Morrison," President Martinez said, taking her seat at the head of the long table. "I've read your preliminary report. Tell me you're joking." Jake remained standing. "I wish I was, Madam President. But everything in my report is true. The Devourers are real, and they're coming." Admiral Torres leaned forward. "Your report says they've consumed 14 worlds in 2 years. How is that possible?" "They don't fight like we do, Admiral," Jake explained. "They don't try to conquer or control. They simply consume everything and move on." According to the Coalition's data, they've never faced serious resistance because no one expected this type of enemy. Director Stone was studying a tablet with Amy's scientific data. "Dr. Walsh's analysis is fascinating. These creatures are like a biological plague that spreads through space. But Captain, your report also says the Coalition has been fighting them for 2 years and losing every battle." "That's correct, sir." "Then what makes you think we can do better?" Jake had been thinking about this question for the entire journey home. "Because we're humans, sir, we don't give up. The Coalition species are advanced, peaceful, civilized. They fight with honor and follow rules. But humans have been fighting dirty wars for thousands of years. We know how to adapt." President Martinez studied Jake's face. "You really believe we can help them?" "I believe we have to try, ma'am. If we don't, the Devourers will reach Earth in less than 6 months." The room fell silent. Jake could hear the air conditioning humming and the distant sound of traffic from the streets above. Finally, President Martinez spoke. "Admiral Torres, how quickly can we mobilize the fleet?" Admiral Torres had been the head of Earth's military for 8 years. He had overseen the expansion of human colonies and the development of new weapon systems. "If we pull ships from every colony and defense station, we can assemble about 300 vessels within 2 weeks. 300 ships, General Hayes repeated, "against an enemy that destroyed entire star systems." "General," Jake said, "with respect, the Coalition was fighting defensively. They were trying to protect their worlds, their people. That limited their options. We don't have that limitation." President Martinez turned to Director Stone. "What about our experimental weapons programs?" Director Stone looked uncomfortable. "We have several projects in development. The plasma cannons, the gravity bombs, the viral warfare systems. But none of them have been tested in real combat. The coalition has been using energy weapons and conventional tactics, Amy Walsh said from her seat near the back of the room. The Devourers have adapted to everything they've seen, but they've never faced human weapons or human tactics. President Martinez made her decision. We're going to help them. Admiral Torres, I want you to prepare the largest fleet in human history. Pull every ship we have. Cancel all non-essential missions. This is now our top priority. Madam President, Director Stone said, are we sure this is wise? We're talking about sending our entire fleet to fight an enemy we've never seen, based on the word of aliens we just met. Jake spoke up. Sir, I've seen the evidence. I've talked to the survivors. The Devourers are real, and they're coming whether we help the coalition or not. Our choice is simple. We can fight them alongside allies who know their tactics, or we can wait and fight them alone. Admiral Torres was already making notes. Captain Morrison, I want you to return to the coalition immediately. Tell them help is coming. And I want you to gather as much tactical information as possible. Yes, sir. President Martinez stood up and everyone else followed. Ladies and gentlemen, as of today, Operation Deathworld Protocol is activated. We are officially at war with the Devourers. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of activity. Jake returned to Unity Station with a small diplomatic team, while Earth's military machine began moving at full speed. Shipyards that had been building cargo vessels started producing warships. Factories that made civilian equipment began making weapons and ammunition. Admiral Torres took personal command of the fleet. His flagship was the UES Retribution, a massive dreadnought that had been designed to fight entire fleets. But even the Retribution looked small compared to some of the ships being pulled from the outer colonies. The used New York arrived from the Alpha Centauri system. It was a carrier that could launch 200 fighter craft. The UES Texas came from the Mars shipyards, armed with the latest plasma cannons. The used California brought a full regiment of colonial Marines, but it wasn't just the military ships that answered the call. Civilian vessels volunteered to join the fleet. The merchant ship Golden Gate offered to carry supplies. The mining vessel Rocky Mountain brought industrial equipment for repairs. Even the passenger liner Pacific Star volunteered to serve as a hospital ship. Danny Rodriguez, the chief engineer at the Luna shipyards, worked 18-hour days to outfit the fleet with experimental weapons. We're giving them everything we've got, he told his team. Plasma cannons, gravity bombs, nuclear torpedoes, and a few surprises the Devourers have never seen. The most unusual addition to the fleet was the UES Chaos, a ship that had been designed by the military's Experimental Warfare Division. It was built to test unconventional tactics and weapons. Captain Ben Miller commanded the Chaos, and he had a reputation for creative thinking. The Devourers have never faced humans before, Captain Miller explained to his crew. They don't know how we think, how we fight, or how we adapt. That's our advantage. Meanwhile, back at Unity Station, Jake was working with the Coalition to coordinate their forces. Admiral Keffer had been amazed by the human response. Your people are mobilizing their entire fleet, the alien admiral said. For strangers they have never met. That's what we do, Jake replied. We help people who need help. Commander Zarelin used her telepathic abilities to study the human tactical plans. Your species thinks differently than we do. Your strategies are chaotic, unpredictable. The Devourers will have difficulty adapting to this. General Throckmore was more direct. Your weapons are primitive but effective. You use kinetic energy, chemical explosives, nuclear fission. We had moved beyond such crude methods long ago. Sometimes crude methods work better, Jake said. The Devourers have adapted to energy weapons and defensive tactics. But they've never faced a nuclear missile or a railgun. Engineer Vexstar had been studying the human ship designs. Your vessels are heavily armored, but not very fast. You build them to take damage and keep fighting. We call it being stubborn, Jake said with a smile. As the human fleet prepared to depart from Earth, President Martinez addressed the crews in a broadcast that reached every ship. Today we go to war against an enemy that has never known defeat, she said. The Devourers have consumed 14 worlds and billions of lives. They think they are unstoppable, They are wrong. The president's image appeared on screens throughout the fleet. We are not fighting for territory or resources. We are fighting for the right of all intelligent life to exist. We are fighting for our new friends in the coalition, and we are fighting for Earth. Admiral Torres took over the broadcast. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. Destination, Unity Station. Remember, we're not just representing Earth today. We're representing the idea that good people don't stand by when evil is winning. The warning came at 0300 hours, ship time. Commander Larabeth's harmonic voice filled the communication channels of the combined human and coalition fleet. Long-range sensors are detecting the swarm. They are 3 hours away and approaching. Fast. Admiral Ryan Torres stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, studying the tactical display. The screen showed a massive cloud of red dots moving toward Unity Station like a living storm. There were thousands of them, far more than intelligence reports had suggested. How many ships are we looking at? Torres asked his tactical officer. 12,000 individual contacts, Admiral, maybe more. The mass is so large our sensors can't get an accurate count? Jake Morrison, now serving as liaison between the human fleet and the coalition, joined Torres on the bridge. Admiral Kethfer says this is the largest swarm force they've ever seen. The Devourers have been gathering ships from all their recent conquests. Torres nodded grimly. The human fleet numbered 300 ships. The coalition had managed to repair about 150 of their surviving vessels. Against 12,000 enemies, the odds were impossible. But Torres had read enough history to know that humans had won impossible battles before. All ships, this is Admiral Torres, he broadcast to the entire fleet. In 3 hours we face an enemy that has never known defeat. They have consumed 14 worlds and think they are unstoppable. Today we prove them wrong. The human fleet began moving into position. Unlike the coalition's traditional defensive formations, the humans spread out in small groups. Each group had a specific mission and the freedom to carry it out however they saw fit. Captain Nick Sullivan commanded the destroyer squadron consisting of 12 fast attack ships. His group was assigned to hit the swarm's flanks and retreat, drawing enemy ships away from the main battle. Captain Ben Miller's experimental ship UZ Chaos would test new weapons and tactics. Seeing what worked against the Devour bioships, Colonel Maya Patel prepared her Marine boarding teams aboard the assault carrier UAS Victory. Her mission was unprecedented, capture Devourer ships from the inside. The coalition had never attempted such a strategy because they considered it suicide. The Devourers have never faced boarding parties, Patel explained to her Marines. They're used to fighting ship-to-ship battles. They won't expect us to come inside their vessels. Dr. Sarah Kim worked frantically in her research lab aboard the science vessel UES Discovery. She had been studying the biological samples the coalition had gathered from previous battles. I think I've found something, she told Jake over the communication link. The Devourers use a form of collective consciousness. If we can disrupt their neural networks, we might be able to confuse them. As the swarm approached, the first visual contact came through the long-range cameras. What the humans saw made even experienced veterans stop and stare. The Devourer ships looked like nightmare creatures from the deepest oceans of Earth. They had writhing tentacles, pulsing organic hulls, and what appeared to be mouths filled with teeth along their sides. "They're not ships," whispered Captain Pete Johnson from his position aboard the mining vessel Rocky Mountain. "They're alive." The largest Devourer vessels were the size of small moons, their surfaces covered in smaller ships that seemed to grow directly from the hull. Streams of biomatter flowed between the ships like blood through veins. The entire swarm moved with the coordination of a single organism. "All ships, engage when ready," Admiral Torres ordered. "Remember, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to survive long enough to hurt them." The battle began when Captain Sullivan's destroyer squadron launched the first attack. 12 human ships dove toward the swarm's leading edge, firing nuclear torpedoes and plasma cannons. The weapons struck the Devourer bioships, creating brilliant explosions that lit up the darkness of space, but instead of being destroyed, The damaged devourer ships began to heal themselves. Their organic hulls flowed like liquid, sealing the holes and absorbing the energy from the explosions. Direct hits on multiple targets, Sullivan reported. But they're regenerating. The damage isn't permanent. Admiral Torres had expected this. The Coalition had warned him that the Devourers could repair themselves quickly. That's why the human battle plan was different from anything the Coalition had tried. Phase 2, Torres ordered. All ships implement Operation Chaos. Captain. Miller's experimental ship UES Chaos led the second wave of attacks. Instead of trying to destroy the Devourer ships, the humans began using weapons designed to confuse and disrupt. They fired electromagnetic pulse missiles that scrambled the bioships' nervous systems. They launched clouds of metallic chaff that interfered with the swarm's communication. The effect was immediate. The perfect coordination of the swarm began to break down. Individual Devourer ships started moving erratically, some firing at their own allies, others spinning in circles as their navigation systems failed. "It's working," Dr. Kim reported excitedly. "The neural disruption is spreading through their collective consciousness. They can't maintain formation." But the Devourers quickly began to adapt. The larger ships sent out pulses of bioenergy that restored order to the smaller vessels. Within minutes, the swarm was coordinated again and moving toward the human fleet with renewed purpose. "They learn fast," Jake observed. "Just like the Coalition warned us." "Then we'll have to learn faster," Torres replied. The Devourer swarm reached the main battle line and space erupted in violence. The bioships fired streams of acid that could eat through the strongest armor. They launched living projectiles that attached themselves to human ships and began consuming the hull. Material. The used Texas took heavy damage when 3 Devourer ships surrounded it and began feeding on its armor plating. Captain Rachel Green watched in horror as her ship's hull slowly dissolved under the alien attack. "All hands abandon ship," she ordered. "This is Captain Green. The Texas is lost." But before the crew could evacuate, the used California arrived and did something no Coalition ship had ever attempted. Instead of trying to drive off the Devourer ships, the California rammed directly into them. Using its armored bow as a weapon, the impact destroyed one Devourer ship completely and severely, damaged the other 2. The California's captain, Tom Bradley, had sacrificed his ship to save the Texas. "This is Bradley," came his voice over the comm. "California is finished, but we took 3 of them with us. Not a bad trade." Across the battlefield, human ships were using tactics that amazed the Coalition observers. When conventional weapons failed, they improvised. Captain Johnson's mining ship, Rocky Mountain, used its industrial drilling equipment to bore holes in Devourer hulls. The passenger liner Pacific Star, converted into a hospital ship, used its powerful communication array to broadcast music at frequencies that disrupted the bioship's nervous systems. "The humans fight like no species we have ever seen, Admiral," Kethver reported to his Coalition commanders. "They turn everything into a weapon." Colonel Patel's Marine boarding teams achieved their first success when they captured a medium-sized Devourer ship. Using cutting torches and explosives, the Marines broke through the bioship's hull and fought their way to what appeared to be a central nervous system. "This is Patel," she reported from inside the alien vessel. "We're in. The interior is like being inside a living creature. Everything is organic, and it's trying to heal around our entry points." Her Marines used chemical weapons to prevent the ship from repairing itself, then began studying the bioship's control systems. What they found was disturbing. "The ship is alive," Patel continued, "but it's not really thinking for itself. It's receiving commands from somewhere else, like it's part of a larger brain." Dr. Kim's analysis confirmed Patel's findings. "The entire swarm is controlled by a central intelligence. If we can find and disrupt the command ship, we might be able to paralyze the whole force." The search for the command ship led the humans deeper into the swarm. Admiral Torres ordered a concentrated assault on the largest bio-vessels. Hoping to find the one that was controlling the others, the UES Retribution led the attack, supported by the remaining destroyers and the experimental weapons of the UES Chaos. They fought their way through layers of defender ships, taking heavy damage but pressing forward. There, Jake pointed at the tactical display. That ship in the center. It's 3 times larger than any of the others, and look at the energy patterns. Every other ship in the swarm is connected to it. The command ship was a nightmare made real. It looked like a giant brain with tentacles pulsing with bioelectric energy. Streams of smaller ships moved around it like antibodies protecting an infection. All remaining ships, concentrate fire on the central vessel, Torres ordered. Everything. We have. The combined human and coalition fleet launched their final assault. Nuclear missiles, plasma cannons, railgun rounds, and experimental gravity bombs all struck the command ship simultaneously. The biovessel's defenses were overwhelming, but the sheer volume of fire began to have an effect. Cracks appeared in the creature's surface. Biofluid leaked into space like alien blood. And most importantly, the other Devourer ships began to slow down and lose coordination. The neural network is failing, Dr. Kim reported. The individual ships are losing contact with the command intelligence. The silence after the battle was strange. For 3 days, space around Unity Station had been filled with the sounds of war. Explosions, weapon fire, and the screams of dying ships had echoed through the communication channels. Now there was only quiet, broken by the occasional report from a search and rescue team. Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of Unity Station, looking out at the aftermath of the greatest battle in galactic history. Thousands of Devourer bioships drifted motionless in space, their organic hulls dark and lifeless. Mixed among them were the wreckage of human and coalition vessels. The price of victory clearly visible. Dr. Amy Walsh joined him at the window. She had been working for 18 hours straight, studying the disabled Devourer ships. Jake, we need to talk about what we found. Jake turned to face her. Amy looked exhausted but excited, the way she always did when she discovered something important. What is it? The Devourers aren't evil, Amy said quietly. They're victims. Before Jake could respond, Admiral Kethver approached them. The aliens. Compound eyes reflected the emergency lighting from the station's damaged sections. Dr. Walsh has made a remarkable discovery. You should hear this. Amy activated a portable holographic display. The image showed the internal structure of a Devourer bioship, but instead of the nightmare creature Jake expected, he saw something that looked almost familiar. Look at the neural pathways, Amy explained, pointing to glowing lines that ran through the creature's body. This isn't natural evolution. Someone modified these beings. Someone turned them into weapons. What do you mean? Jake asked. Admiral Kethver answered. Dr. Walsh discovered implants throughout the Devourer nervous systems, artificial devices that control their behavior and enhance their hunger. Amy switched to a different image. We found similar implants in every ship we examined. But here's the important part. The implants are failing. When we destroyed the command ship, we didn't just cut off their communication. We damaged the control network that was forcing them to consume everything. Jake stared at the display. You're saying someone else is responsible for all this destruction? The Devourers were turned into a weapon, Amy confirmed. Probably thousands of years ago. They've been enslaved, forced to consume world after world to feed an artificial hunger they can't control. The implications were staggering. 14 worlds destroyed, billions of lives lost. Entire civilizations wiped out, all because someone had turned a peaceful species into living weapons. Do we know who did this? Jake asked. Not yet, Amy replied. But the technology is incredibly advanced. Whoever created these implants was far beyond anything the Coalition or humanity has achieved. Admiral Kethver's mandibles clicked together, and what Jake had learned was a sign of deep thought. This changes everything. If the Devourers are victims rather than aggressors, then we have a moral obligation to help them. Dr. Sarah Kim's voice came through the communication system. Jake, Amy, you need to get to Medical Bay 7 immediately. We have a situation. They found Dr. Kim working over what appeared to be an injured Devourer. The creature was smaller than the bioships, about the size of a human, with tentacles instead of arms and large, intelligent eyes. It was conscious and seemed to be trying to communicate. This one was inside a damaged bioship, Dr. Kim explained. When the control implants failed, it regained its natural consciousness. It's been trying to tell us something. Commander Zarelin was also present, using her telepathic abilities to communicate with the creature. It says its name is something like Gentle Current. It's trying to apologize for the destruction its people have caused. Jake approached the creature slowly. Even without telepathic abilities, he could see the intelligence and sadness in its eyes. Can you tell it that we understand? That we know its people were controlled? Zarelin translated, and the creature's response was immediate. Through the Quintal commander, it began to tell its story. My people were explorers, Gentle Current said through Zarelina's voice. We traveled between the stars, studying life and sharing knowledge. Then the masters came. They said they wanted to help us, to make us stronger. They put the metal things in our minds. The masters, Amy repeated. Who were they? Ancient ones. Older than memory. They said all life in the galaxy belonged to them, and we would be their harvesters. We tried to resist, but the metal things made us hungry. So hungry, we couldn't stop eating. The creature's distress was obvious even across species barriers. Jake felt a wave of sympathy for this being and its people, enslaved for thousands of years and forced to commit atrocities against their will. Where are these masters now? Jake asked. Gone, came the reply. They left long ago, when the metal things began working properly. They said they would return when the galaxy was ready for harvest. The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. The Devourers had been created as a weapon to prepare the galaxy for conquest by some ancient species. And now that weapon was broken, can the implants be removed? Dr. Kim asked. Amy and Dr. Kim worked together to examine Gentle Current's neural implants. The devices were incredibly sophisticated, woven directly into the creature's nervous system. But they were also damaged from the battle, and some of their control functions had shut down. It might be possible, Amy said after several hours of study, but it would require delicate surgery and technology we don't currently have. We'd need to work with the Coalition to develop new techniques. Over the following days, a remarkable transformation took place. Human engineers worked alongside Coalition scientists to develop methods for removing the Devourer implants. The process was slow and dangerous, but gradually, more Devourer individuals began to regain their natural consciousness. Each freed Devourer told the same story. They had been peaceful explorers before the Masters arrived. The artificial hunger had driven them to consume world after world, but they had never wanted to cause such destruction. Many of them remembered every life they had taken, and the guilt was overwhelming. Captain Pete Johnson, whose mining ship had survived the battle, proposed a solution. My crew knows how to terraform dead worlds, he told the assembled leaders. If the Devourers want to make up for what they've done, they could help us bring life back to the worlds they consumed. The idea caught on quickly. The Devourers, freed from their artificial hunger, possessed incredible biological knowledge. They could accelerate plant growth, modify atmospheres, and restore entire ecosystems. Working together with human terraforming technology and coalition science, they could rebuild what had been destroyed. President Helen Martinez arrived from Earth aboard a diplomatic vessel, accompanied by representatives from every human colony. The sight that greeted her was unlike anything in human history. Former enemies, working together to heal the damage they had caused. This is what we fought for, she told Jake during a private meeting. Not just victory, but the chance to turn enemies into friends. The first restored world was the former Zolani homeworld. Commander Larabeth wept harmonic tears as she watched grass grow in soil that had been dead for 2 years. The Devourers worked tirelessly, using their biological abilities to restore the planet's ecosystem, while human engineers rebuilt the cities and coalition scientists replanted the forests. It's more beautiful than it ever was before, Larobeth sang, her voice creating patterns of light in the crystalline structures around her. Within 6 months, 3 dead worlds had been restored to life. The Devourers, working under their true names rather than the title their oppressors had given them, called themselves the Nurturers. They dedicated their existence to growing and protecting life rather than consuming it. Jake found himself appointed as humanity's first ambassador to the new Galactic Alliance. The position came with a ship, the UES Friendship, and a crew drawn from all member species. His first officer was Commander Lyrabeth, his science officer was Dr. Amy Walsh, and his chief engineer was a reformed nurturer who had chosen the name Life Giver. Captain Morrison, Life Giver said during their first mission together, "My people owe yours a debt that can never be repaid. You freed us from our bondage." Jake looked around the bridge of his new ship, at the humans and aliens working together. As equals, we didn't free you to create a debt. We freed you because it was the right thing to do. The Galactic Alliance grew rapidly. Other species, hearing about the defeat of the Devourers and the restoration of dead worlds, asked to join. The Centauri Republic, humanity's first alien neighbors, became members. The Vegan Confederacy brought their advanced medical technology. The Altarian Empire contributed their knowledge of hyperspace navigation, but it was the partnership between humans, the coalition species, and the nurturers that formed the Alliance's core. They had learned that former enemies could become the strongest allies, and that cooperation was more powerful than any weapon. Dr. Sarah Kim, now the Alliance's chief xenobiologist, made another important discovery. The masters who had enslaved the nurturers had left traces of their technology throughout the galaxy. Ancient devices hidden on dead worlds, waiting to be activated when their creators returned. "We need to find and disable these devices," she reported to the Alliance Council. "The Masters might come back someday, and we need to be ready for them."